Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic true health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 22.
This is what our body needs as just daily life, and in our traditional foods that we've eaten, this was part of the diets across the world.
Right.
And so we've strayed from that somewhat with our sanitized foods, that have had everything wiped down too much. And that's where we get to things along the line of germ theory and people and children developing all these different allergies and sensitivities. One theory is, well, it's because they're not exposed to enough dirt, that they're not exposed to enough fermented foods.
Well, today we finally get to answer the question, what the heck is kombucha? Welcome back to the show, Dr. Megan Saunders.
Thank you. I love kombucha. So kombucha is this life form that aliens have sent to our planet to take over the world. I'm pretty sure that it has sent mycelium tendrils into my brain and controls my daily life. No.
I think I already joined that church.
I love kombucha. I used to make my own kombucha, and it's an incredible probiotic drink that originated in kind of Eastern Russia and China, and it's a fermented tea beverage. And I say that it was sent to this planet to control our civilization because I love it. I love kombucha. I crave kombucha the way that some people crave, coffee because it tastes great. It's like for me, it's like soda. It's a healthy soda, so it's got a little bit of a sweet taste. It's got some very similar to vinegar, so it's got a little bit of that gastric secretion support, the stomach acid support. It's fermented. I like bubbly things. It doesn't have to be fermented. Some people can make it if you brew it on your own. It can be flat as well, and so it's really weird. If you see it growing, in a bowl, it'll have this thick, sort of mushroom-like looking flesh-colored pancake on top, and that's what's called the mother. But it's like a yeast, and so that's where it starts the culture. And then you add sugar in brewed tea, and the organisms eat up the sugar, and so then they start to grow and ferment and create CO2. And so if you have it in a bottle, then it'll carbonate. And it's just a wonderful example of how traditional cultures all over the world have various types of preserving types of foods by using cultures, right? So like yogurt and kefir and all these other cultured foods, sauerkraut and all these other things that we like to eat is also a food preservation method in doing that. And then also probiotics, and probably maybe our ancestors knew this, maybe not, maybe they had a good intuitive insight into the benefit of probiotics, but it's an incredible part of our immune system, of the way that our body assimilates food. It's becoming more and more recognized as something that's an integral part of our health, cardiovascular health, mood support. If anyone's ever familiar with David Perlmutter and his work, he's a neuroscientist who wrote the most well-known book that he wrote is about grain brain, but is the title of that book. But several other books, and he does a lot of research on the role of probiotics and the nervous system and the brain and mood and neurotransmitters. So the scope of what can be improved with probiotics is amazing, and so I try to incorporate it into my diet in as many ways as possible.
So it is fermented,
right? Yeah.
And it has probiotics,
right?
And it tastes good.
It tastes good for people who like tart things. So some people think it's disgusting and can't taste it. I don't like kefir that much. So for some reason, for me, that's not my thing. And some people love kefir. So some of it is a taste thing.
Kefir is like a fermented yogurt drink.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I've had it. It wasn't bad. It reminded me of like a protein shake.
Yeah, some people love it. Not my bag, but I think it's great for people that love it. It's a good probiotic, and for some people that don't tolerate dairy very well, if you're lactose intolerant, kefir, the bacteria will digest the lactose, the milk sugar. So that's part of that fermentation process. So yeah, and also it helps with people who don't tolerate dairy that well either. Sometimes because of the probiotic content to it, and so the ability to assimilate the milk is also helpful. So.
Is this something that's been around for a really long time? Because I was like, I guess I just moved to Seattle and all of a sudden everyone's drinking it.
So available on the commercial market. I just went to our local drugstore the other day, Bartell's, and they had kombucha, and so and I was so excited to see it on the shelf. I was like, yes, now I'm sold. Now I'm going here all the time for my small shopping trips because I can get kombucha on the way out. I'm just waiting for the coffee stands to start carrying it too, which would be a natural progression because it's a tea, it's a fermented tea, you can kind of get in there. So
and it's made from like a black tea, so it has some.
You can make it from green tea as
really?
well. Yeah, you can make it from green tea. It'll have a little bit of caffeine in it, but a lot of that has been kind of processed out with the fermentation process, so it's not a hugely stimulating drink, but it does have some caffeine in it. It has a little bit of sugar in it, but overall it's a pretty low calorie drink. And because of the sort of vinegar, similar qualities to vinegar, helps with regulating blood sugar as well. Has a lot of B vitamins in it, and then the probiotic content. So,
is there any dangers? Because when I started hearing about the kombucha, I started looking it up, like the mother. Weird, disgusting alien thing when you brew it or when you, I guess it's brew. Yeah. I mean, you're fermenting it. So it's sort of like the same lingo you'd use for making beer.
Yeah. I think that's the terminology.
And is there any dangers? Like, can you brew it wrong and all of a sudden give yourself poisoning from?
So from a standard of care, across the board general rule, yeah, so for women who are pregnant, we don't recommend that they eat a lot of cultured foods because of the risk of food poisoning, and then so the risk for pregnancy with that. That said, I remember, as I'm obviously very addicted to kombucha, I may have to buy one after this podcast. So, but I
have one in my fridge for you.
Okay. So. I was hesitant to give it up. And so I was talking to my ND midwife and I was like, really? Okay, come on. Like, do I really have to give it up? And he was like, well, look at traditional cultures. These foods have been part of the just everyday diet, pregnant, not pregnant, everyone eats it. So, historically, traditionally, we could say, yeah, it's probably okay. But from a safety factor and quality control factor, it would be safer not to. It's an interesting debatable point because, pregnant women, their immune system is suppressed as well. And so probiotics are a great way to support a healthy immune system. And when a woman's pregnant, she can't take a ton of herbs either. And you can't take even, if you're the sort of person that would take over-the-counter medication or things like that, if you were sick, lots of those things you can't take either. And so probiotics are a good way to support kind of a at-risk population during that time for their immune health, but it's kind of this questionable thing. So I would say, and that's an individual decision for each person, and some people, when they start drinking any sort of fermented probiotic, whatever, sometimes people will get the response of having diarrhea.
Yes.
After that, and that doesn't mean that you don't tolerate it. It means that you just exposed your gut to a new organism, and now your gut's trying to figure out what to do with it. So, perhaps if that's what happened every time you drank it for like the next 2 weeks, yeah, maybe kombucha is not the thing for you, or maybe that was a bad batch, or whatever the case may be. But a kind of a week of transition would be expected. And lots of times for people who deal with chronic constipation, adding in a daily probiotic drink, whether it's kefir or kombucha, is very helpful for that. So
So I pretty much shop at our local co-op or occasionally Whole Foods, but anywhere where I shop is going to be like a super organic granola hippie crunchy store.
Right.
And and there's this wall of kombucha, and I kind of get intimidated because there's like 500 kinds. And I'm thinking to myself, are they each like a different strain of probiotic
Some of
or?
them do. Some of them have patents on the different strains. And so if you look on the back, that some of them will have the same strain, some of them will have more than others. It really depends on what their sort of mother source is for the kombucha. But you know, I should try and get an endorsement from the brands that I like. But because just for taste wise, there's a few that I like in particular. There's some that have fruit juice added to sweeten it a little bit, so then that's going to be a little bit higher in sugar. Some of them don't have that added. Some of them are more flat. Some of them are carbonated. Again, from a traditional sort of society perspective, you would get a lot of different probiotics from depending on what you ate and what was growing and even the weather and what encouraged things to grow or not. So I like to rotate when people are taking probiotic supplements. I like to rotate the probiotics unless I have a very specific goal in mind. Like if someone's doing an anti-candida sort of diet, which is a yeast overgrowth in the GI tract or like a vaginal yeast infection, there's some certain things that I try to do. Or if someone's been on a course of antibiotics and we're trying to prevent something like C. difficile, which is an infection that can occur after being on antibiotics, then I specifically will give Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a strain that has been shown in the research to prevent C. difficile. So people that are hospitalized commonly get C. difficile after surgery. It tends to be an issue. So taking the Saccharomyces is helpful for that at that time. But if we're just talking about general health, if we were talking about someone who, maybe has been discovered that they have a gluten intolerance and has IBS and they just cut out the gluten and now they're still trying to figure things out and we're doing a gut healing protocol, a good probiotic is going to be part of that. And so both probiotic foods, best way to go for that, but also capsules are a good way. And there's a lot of different brands that have that offer probiotics, and quite a while ago now, Bastyr University had done a study on probiotics, and they had found that many of the probiotics that were available over the counter didn't have what it said was in it, or had actually pathogenic, so bad bacteria in it. And so there are some brands that I do like that I think are better and high quality. And a good rule of thumb is it's going to be in the refrigerated section of the store, or it's going to be in a vacuum pack. So little individual pop nitrogen sealed packs to ensure the life of those organisms. And it's going to cost somewhere, at least $20 for a month's supply. More likely somewhere between $30 to $50 for a month's supply is kind of a good rule of thumb. But then you just have to look at what their quality control is for the various different products. But that's something to be cautious of. So don't get the $7.99 probiotic that you can get on the shelf at Walmart. It's probably not going to be the best one for you and may actually be not helpful for you. So there's some things that are really important that you invest in high quality nutrients. There's some things that anyone can make, right? So, glucosamine. Anyone can make glucosamine. You do have to wonder a little bit about the source, but what the research shows is it's really about the right dosing versus something like a probiotic or fish oil, where we need to make sure that it has in it what it says it has in it, and that there's no contamination or any issues with that. There's a little bit higher skill in terms of the manufacturing process.
So, what about people who want to make their own? Is that like an adventure? Is that like you love it so much? There's people who love beer. They're like, I'm gonna go brew it in my garage.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of people that make their own kombucha?
I used to make my own.
Oh my God!
And that was actually how I introduced myself to my future friends when I started at Bastyr. I introduced myself as the Crazy Kombucha Lady because I would make it all the time. I'd have several different cultures going, and yeah, so that was fun. And I don't do that very much anymore because my husband says that it smells like rotting disgustingness. He's one of those people who doesn't like the smell or the taste of it. I love it. I like tart things. He does not. But my mom still makes it, and she has a lot of fun in terms of getting different varieties of tea, making it with white tea versus green tea, or different black teas and different flavors and all sorts of things that you can do with that. And so there is an art to it. The right amount of sugar with the right amount of water, and some people will do it with honey, some people will just do it with the sugar. and harvesting it at the right time, and then you bottle it if you want it to be carbonated and seal it and let it sit longer. But you can buy it online. There are kombucha starter kits now because it's so popular. And same with kefir. You can buy the kefir grains, the kefir seeds to start that, to start a culture on your own. Or just post on your local community, look on Craigslist or in your local community Facebook group, and people will have those. And that's that's one of those beautiful things. It's like the old, did you ever do the old Amish, like friendship bread?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like that. It's something that the community just passes it on, because you don't have to give away your culture to allow someone else to do it. You just give them part of it, and so then it expands and continues to grow. Yeah. So it's a really beautiful community tradition as well. And then for things like sauerkraut or kimchi, those are using the natural yeast that are on the plants and in the air, and so it's simply adding salt and packing it in a crock for sauerkraut. I haven't made kimchi before, but I think it similarly is packed in a crock as well and allowed to ferment. And those, it's very easy to find that information online or in some of the wild fermentation books. There's so much more that you can do than just these things that we're talking about in terms of wild foods and wild fermentation, but it's a really important thing to add into the diet, that your food isn't sterile. And not only just your food sterile in what you're eating, but we also talk about the biome and the earth, and so having live bacteria is very important for the soil as well. And so lots of people don't realize when they're turning their garden bed, if you dig too deep, you're messing up that biome as well. There's a certain way of even digging in terms of permaculture gardening techniques, where you're replacing the soil back at the level and gently mixing in sort of your natural fertilizer or soil amendments and compost, so that you don't disrupt the biome there. So it's important at all levels, not only at the stage of what's going into your mouth, that can be a live culture, but even where your food's being grown.
I saw this study where they microwaved garden dirt.
Yeah.
And then tried to grow plants in it beside earth that wasn't microwaved. And they couldn't get that soil to be fertile.
Yeah, and that's the question about what happens when we use all these pesticides and chemicals in our soil as well. We're creating this sterile earth that things can't grow in well, or they can't grow in without this additional chemical support to force it to grow. So it's like everything else in life. It takes, you can't cut corners.
Right. There's also another thing. I was intrigued. I was doing a ton of studying when I was pregnant, the whole concept of C-section versus vaginal birth. And that was when I first heard about the biome. It was from Penny Simpkin, who's this like doula, the trainer of all doulas.
Yeah.
And she led our prenatal class. And she said when a baby's born, like she showed a picture of a baby vaginally birthed and it was covered in white. And she said that is the biome. The baby's covered in the biome. And you also, you want to hold the baby skin to skin because you're giving it your biome. And it sounds like this, mythical sort of like rainbows and unicorns kind of thing, because we can't see it with our own eyes.
Right.
But there was this meta-analysis done where they looked at children who were born vaginally and children who were born C-section, and years later, the ones who were vaginally born had healthier gut flora, and then like significantly decreased gut flora in the ones that were born C-section.
Yeah, because and this may be TMI for some of our listeners. There's too much information, but there, there's an environment in the vagina that, and everyone knows that because women can get yeast infections, and that's an imbalance of that bacteria that's naturally there. And so there's probiotics that are specific for vaginal health, for people who have tendency towards yeast infections or bacterial vaginosis, all these different sort of things that can occur. And so those can be both taken internally, orally, and that bacteria can migrate there, but also be inserted vaginally, and that can populate it. But for a baby just being born, that's their first exposure to some of this bacteria, and that's where they get that from. For babies that are born via C-section, in my training, what we have them do is get a powder probiotic, and so just put a little bit on your finger, and so then the baby right before breastfeeding will just get a little bit of that probiotic. You can put it in their mouth, and then they'll breastfeed, so that they'll start to build a nice hearty gut biome. So it's it was really interesting, and this idea of yeast overgrowth and bacterial imbalance in the GI tract, like candidiasis as a diagnosis is something about candida overgrowth in the blood, and it's a very severe diagnosis, and people in the hospital for it, and it's very problematic. Candidiasis of the gut is rarely diagnosed as problematic. We only diagnose it orally in the mouth in babies as thrush, or sometimes as adults can get thrush, and vaginally. And so there's kind of one end and the other end, but we don't say, okay, well, there's nothing going on in the middle, right? Or even yeast infections on the skin. I've had patients who had thrush and yeast infections on the skin, all these other problems, and that never treated the gut. And so a really important part of those patients' treatment plans was rebalancing the gut flora, so avoiding, reducing the yeast overgrowth. And what happens with that, so an example would be you take an antibiotic because you have a ear infection, which, by the way, the American Medical Association, the Pediatric Association, does not recommend using antibiotics for ear infections right away. Most of the time it will run its course. So, but people like to go in, your baby's in pain, they want something. So, and that's when you go see a naturopath. There are lots of things you can do for that. Besides, which we'll get into, the pediatric first aid kit. We'll do that one day. But so you take your antibiotic, and not only does that kill the bad bacteria that you're trying to get rid of, right? Someone has strep throat or something like that, but it kills all the good gut bacteria as well. And then these opportunistic bacteria will grow, not just candida, but other strains of bacteria that you don't want to be growing there. And that's where we end up seeing people getting these chronic yeast infections and bloating and abdominal pain or diarrhea, IBS-like symptoms. And so those folks that we refer to that often as candida or candida overgrowth. And actually, even one of my patients recently, was dealing with a repeat vaginal infections, and I was so amazed at how the medical perspective is starting to change, because while I had been treating this patient for candida issues, her OB similarly said, well, this keeps occurring with you. It's probably migrating from your gut. And I was shocked. I was floored. I'd never heard of a medical doctor that wasn't an environmental medicine specialist or kind of a holistic oriented person talking about that. But this is just her OB. And I was super impressed. So that person's now on my referral list for sure.
Nice.
When I need to send people out. But then the other thing that can happen, and that I see a lot of, is this SIBO, this small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And what should happen is most of the bacteria should be in your large intestine. You shouldn't have a lot of bacteria hanging out in the small intestine. And this overgrowth can occur, and people get upper abdominal bloating and frequent belching are the two most common symptoms, but they can also have dumping, right, where you eat food and just immediately it comes out, liquid sort of stool, undigested food. They can have a lot of the symptoms similar to irritable bowel syndrome.
I'd also like to add that a symptom could be like Bart Simpson gut.
Right,
So
yeah, bloating, lots of bloating.
If you look like or feel like Bart Simpson,
right,
like that beer gut, where your gut can, like, if you're readjusting your, especially for men, I think it's more, I've seen it in guys a lot, where if they adjust their belt, if you have to adjust your belt like several inches after a meal for a few hours, or if in the morning your belt's tighter and by the afternoon it's, or if at night, then you have to like totally take your belt off. Like if there's some kind of crazy expansion going on in your gut, then look into SIBO.
Right,
SIBO.
And a key sort of thing about that would be lots of people will look at that and say, well, maybe I have candida. And one of the sort of keynotes of SIBO or SIBO, depending on where you are in the country or in the world, your pronunciation is a little different, tomato, but probiotics make it worse. Because there's already a bacterial overgrowth there, and then you're adding, and sometimes it's not even bad bacteria, it's just bacteria that is in the wrong place. And so that's one of the, you can do a breath test for it, and that's the diagnosis of how to do it, to figure out what's going on. But something that will make me think, oh, maybe this person has this bacterial overgrowth in their small intestine is probiotics make it worse. So that would be an example of not everything is, blanket good for you. Long term, that'll be good for them, but we have to get things back into balance.
So kombucha, not good for SIBO.
And questionable even for candida, because when people are doing an anti-candida diet, we tell them to avoid anything with yeast in it, and so that there are lots of yeasts in kombucha and any of these fermented foods, and so It's this fine line to walk. People ask me that all the time. Well, can I have kombucha? Can I have apple cider vinegar? Because that really helps me with my with my reflux or whatever their issue is. And I say, okay, well, here's the really strict anti-candida diet, and it's super strict, low glycemic diet, no sugars, not even, very low on fruits, if at all. You're really trying to starve the candida.
Yeah, no condiments. You can't eat leftover food.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it can be that strict, and I never tell people this is what you have to do. I say, here's the A+ icing on the cake. This is what we may need to get to. Here's the most basic interventions that you need to do. Example would be, I have a patient that, we know we're working on candida, and we're doing a lot of foundations of health in terms of restructuring diet and lifestyle and all these other things. And so, for this person in particular, the improvement is, okay, well, I've only had 2 sodas this week, when previously it was like 3 sodas a day. Well, obviously, or if you know about candida and you're trying to avoid sugar, something that's feeding it, no soda, right? No soda, no fruit juice, no, this is the candida diet. You gotta stay off of it, but it's better. It's in the right direction. And so I like to work with people with where they're at. And even at that this person's improving and they're doing what they can at this time and getting good results.
So there's certain times we shouldn't do kombucha and other fermented foods. By the way, my entire pregnancy, no one told me to not do fermented foods. And I think every day I ate sauerkraut.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
And lots of people would, and traditionally that'd be, it's, there's people in medicine, we lean towards being overly cautious, or at least we try to. And so those things that are unknown, that we don't have a bulk of medical research on, and not a lot of people are doing studies on kombucha and pregnancy. So, we got to say, I don't know.
Right.
Because we don't know, maybe the answer is no, you shouldn't do it. But I think also looking, again, like I said, at the historical, traditional diets, fermented foods are part of the diet. And it's not like you stopped eating the fermented food with your family. You stopped having the kimchi because you're all of a sudden pregnant. Right. That didn't happen. So perhaps a good rule of thumb would be, don't start eating something new and fermented when you're pregnant. Don't change your diet a ton. That wouldn't be the time to introduce it.
Right. Okay, so for people who know they have candida, know they have SIBO, know they're pregnant, don't jump on the kombucha bandwagon just yet, right?
Maybe. It's really, so that's something you gotta work with your individual provider to be able to figure out, where you're at, because it really is situational dependent. I've got a patient with SIBO, and one of the things, she's supposed to be doing the FODMAPs diet, which is a very strict diet, avoiding all sorts of different foods that would feed the bacteria, right? So one of the things is avoiding a lot of things that are high in fiber. And this person cannot not take her fiber. If she doesn't take her fiber every day, bad things happen. So there's these general rules of thumb, and then there's treating the individual person. And so we come up with these diagnoses, and we say, okay, generally this is what this diagnosis encompasses. But in reality, it's like there are these Venn diagrams of overlapping symptoms, and so the individual person might have 4 or 5 different circles overlapping to equal who they are. And so that's really the benefit of working with a provider that will take the time to get to know you physically on all levels. They should ask about all of your symptoms. If your doctor isn't asking you about your poop and doesn't know or care that you're not having a bowel movement every day, at least once a day, then there's a problem. The amount of people that have a bowel movement twice a week in this country and think that's normal. I'll ask people, okay, so constipation, diarrhea, gas, bloating? Nope. Okay, so you have a bowel movement every day? Well, no. Oh, how often do you have bowel? Oh, okay, so twice a week. Okay, so that's constipation, and we have to work on that. Your body's giving you a symptom, and we need to address it because this is problematic. You're putting stuff in and not eliminating it efficiently. So,
Right. And so that's a very good point to remember, is that if your doctor isn't seriously looking at all areas of your life and taking the time to, which not MDs aren't given enough time because of how they get paid through insurance, whereas
right.
NDs, your appointment with them could be, 90 minutes. It could be a long, very long appointment.
Right.
Where they can take a lot of time to get to know your poop. And and that's a good thing. But there's the people out there who know they don't have any major yeast infections.
Yeah, add it in every day.
Every drink kombucha every day.
Yeah, I don't have a concern about, adding in fermented foods into your diet. I suppose, someone who's drinking gallons of it every day, that might be, that could be problematic. But in general, a wide variety of fermented foods is a good thing for your immune system, for your gut biome. In terms of all the research, like when I was talking about Dr. Perlmutter's research on mood and brain neurochemistry about the gut, it's incredible. And so, yeah, I think it should be part of our regular diet. If we were to remake the food pyramid, which we should, many people have, it should include, probiotic food as well, cultured foods.
That's awesome. And I heard somewhere, maybe from you, that it takes up to 5 years to repopulate the gut with healthy probiotics after taking an antibiotic.
I was recently talking about that with Dr. Brooke Whites, who you've also chatted with. So yeah, it is amazing how long it takes to recover, the body, and so that's why a lot of when you look at these sort of multivitamin packs or things that you can get, lots of these things will include probiotic as part of that, as part of your daily supplement. And I see that a lot of different companies doing that. Just people ask me, okay, well, what things should I be taking just for my daily health maintenance? I'm like, a multivitamin that has minerals in it, a fish oil, or an omega like flaxseed oil if you're a vegetarian, and a probiotic.
And so you can do probiotics like you've mentioned in the refrigerated section, pills, packed in nitrogen, or can you just do the fermented foods or both? I mean,
either or, yeah. Unless there's a specific goal that we're trying to target, like I said with the C. difficile and the Saccharomyces, yeah, you could get a much higher dose of probiotic from eating fermented food than you would get from a capsule, and more fun. I don't. My goal in life isn't to have people be taking 30 pills a day. Sometimes that happens, but I try not to have it be that way. This should just be part of life and living, right? We don't, at what point am I prescribing a probiotic? Is that much different than any other sort of prescription? Ideally, some of the thought process is that this is our normal, this is what our body needs as just daily life. And in our traditional foods that we've eaten, this was part of the diets across the world.
Right.
And so we've strayed from that somewhat with our sanitized foods, that have had everything wiped down too much. And that's where we get to things along the line of germ theory and people and children developing all these different allergies and sensitivities. One theory is, well, it's because they're not exposed to enough dirt, that they're not exposed to enough fermented foods, they're not exposed to even things like parasites. Like there's part of your immune system that was made to have a balance with all of this and get exposed to things and develop a really robust exposure to different organisms. And so because everything's so sanitized and the counters are wiped down in Lysol and the food's been flash frozen and heated and sprayed with chemicals and microwaved, and it's not alive anymore. And so that's one of the theories of why are we seeing so many food allergies and food sensitivities? Why are we seeing so many environmental allergies and hay fever and all these other immune system imbalances. And that's part of it, is because our bodies were made to have this response. And if it's not getting trained at a young age to be able to develop that sort of arsenal of good immune health, then it's going to get redirected in an unhealthy way. And so that's one, even to the fact that, some alternative treatments, and I haven't done this with patients yet, but I was reading about it, some patients with things like Crohn's will get a parasite. They'll get a parasitic infection because it will distract their immune system, and it will become redirected. So that's kind of an alternative therapy that people will do. So there is, it's not as black and white as germs are bad and clean is good. A little dirt is healthy for you.
Yeah, it stimulates your immune system. What was that documentary a few years ago where the guy challenged himself to eat nothing but McDonald's for 30 days?
Right.
And it's on Netflix.
Super Size Me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, just go to Netflix, search health documentaries, and go to town. But I think at the end he did some time caption with McDonald's versus McDonald's hamburger.
Right, so it didn't decay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you've got a McDonald's hamburger and you've got fries beside, like, I guess, a home-cooked hamburger and fries. And, within 3 days, the home-cooked hamburger looks like it has mold on it, or within a week. And then it was, like, months and months. And the McDonald's food just dehydrated slowly. No bacteria wanted to grow on it.
Right. And if the bacteria didn't want to grow on it, why would we want to eat it?
Right. And, we've talked before, either on the podcast or in person, we've talked about the obesogens, the chemicals that they're spraying, the Monsanto that they're spraying now. They weren't doing this 10 years ago. They weren't doing this when we were growing up. The food has changed in the last 30 years. Food has significantly changed. And what we call conventionally grown, which is ridiculous because you'd think conventional grown would be organic, but conventionally grown food, which is sprayed with all these chemicals, these chemicals kill our gut flora. They harm our immune system. They're
neurotoxins, and there's so many concerns with it, and some of them are known carcinogens, and so there's a lot of reasons to buy organic food, or to, the next step would be buy things like your food at the farmer's market, so Costco, which I love Costco, I shop there all the time, but Costco organic isn't the same as organic food from your small local organic biodynamic farmer that does his own compost and does small sized crops and has live culture in the ground, versus things that are produced on a mass scale, which is a better option than conventionally pesticide sprayed food. But even best is when your farmer, the quality of food that's being made. When we buy meat, when we buy it from a farmer, and we buy it, it's more cost effective that way, and we know that we're getting a really good high quality product. And so
I will go in on a cow with you, by the way.
Done. All right, done.
And all the vegetarians turned off the podcast. But seriously, I mean, that's a really great solution. Get a bunch of friends together and go in on a grass-fed, organic, happy cow that had a wonderful life in a field somewhere. And they'll butcher it for you, they'll package it up, and then you can split it with your friends. We've done this before, and it was fantastic. Like, at least one of your friends has a deep freezer, in case everyone has a tiny freezer. And then you just get a clipboard with everyone's sort of share. And so when you go to your friend's house with a deep freezer, you just mark off which cuts you took from the freezer. And at least, that way where your meat came from.
Yeah, and then you share your kombucha cultures and your kefir seeds, and, you make some homemade sauerkraut and have a fun party with all your friends.
Oh my God, I want a sauerkraut party. That's it. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I've been really afraid of drinking kombucha, to be honest, because I had it once and it made me run to the bathroom. And so I just thought...
Small amounts. Try maybe a quarter of the bottle, and see how you respond to that. It could have been too big of a new probiotic
Oh,
dose
yeah.
all at once.
I was really thirsty. I just chugged the thing. I mean, I just thought it was a drink. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was in for that surprise. So I was worried, like, well, maybe I'm only supposed to drink 1 ounce a day. Like, I don't know. Is this dosed? Or, so just start small and see and work your way up, basically. Excellent.
Yeah. My
Excellent.
2-year-old loves it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He loves it. We call it mommy soda. He likes mommy soda, which is kombucha.
That's awesome. All right, one last question though. Okay, so I sort of know what a probiotic is, right? And it's this live, wonderful bacteria that feeds off of other bacteria.
A probiotic is going to be the bacteria, right?
Okay.
That you're trying to repopulate your gut with, and then there's prebiotics, which maybe was what you're going to ask about, and so that's giving your body the precursors to support gut health to support those probiotic the good bacteria that you want there, and so. Prebiotic is something that you can either get as a supplement, or even better is to be eating foods that are high in fiber, that are either whole grains or instead of juicing, that you eat the whole apple is the way to do that. Yeah.
Excellent. I've really gotten into kale, so
there you go. Perfect.
Kale it up. You can just take kale and put avocado slices in and wrap it up, and it's delicious. Yeah, Longevity has our multivitamin. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 has prebiotic and probiotic, and I always wondered what the heck is a prebiotic. So
yeah, it's the food for the bacteria.
Got it. All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much. You've enlightened us all. We're all going to go find the alien mother kombucha,
right. And we'll spread. We'll have kombucha parties around the country, and everyone will make it, except they're at my house because my husband can't stand the smell. I need my own kombucha brewing room that I can sequester away. He
recently built a shed. You could probably take part of the shed and be like, this is my kombucha shed.
I can't take his man's shed.
He needs to build you a woman shed then.
I need a woman shed. Yeah, exactly, where I can make tinctures and dry herbs and grow kombucha.
Oh my gosh. I support you in your woman shed.
All right,
I think I need one too. Thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Megan Saunders. It was a pleasure to have you on as always, and I'm going to go try kombucha now.
Okay, thanks for having me, Ashley.
Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high-quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com, and one of our fantastic True Health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.